Breaking point. The research vessel Aurora drifted silently through the Carina Nebula, its sophisticated sensors probing the gas clouds for signs of primitive life. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the readings with practiced patience, occasionally adjusting the sensitivity of their biodetection arrays. 20 years of peaceful exploration had taught humanity much about their place in the galaxy, though not all lessons had been welcome ones. Another anomalous reading. Her assistant Marcus called out, his dark fingers dancing across the holographic interface, similar to the ones we detected in the Horsehead Nebula last month. Sarah frowned, comparing the data streams. The Galactic Concordat had dismissed their previous findings, claiming the readings were simple sensor malfunctions. But Sarah knew better. Something was systematically destroying nascent life forms in these nebulae, and the pattern was too precise to be natural. The ship's AI suddenly cut through her thoughts. Multiple vessels dropping out of FTL. Concordat signatures detected. That's odd, Marcus said, checking their permits. We filed all the proper research authorizations. They shouldn't. The first plasma bolt struck before he could finish, cutting through the Aurora's civilian-grade shields like they weren't even there. Sarah watched in horror as emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the ship, trying desperately to contain the devastating damage. Mayday. This is the TSV Aurora. We are under attack. Marcus broadcast on all frequencies. We are a civilian research vessel. We. The second volley ended all transmissions permanently. Hours later, in the stark white conference room of the Terran Defense Force headquarters on Luna, Admiral Helena Santos watched the recovered black box footage in rigid silence. Around the table sat the other 5 members of humanity's military high command, their faces grim. The Concordat is claiming pirates were responsible, General Zhang said quietly, just like the last 3 incidents. Admiral Santos' dark eyes never left the screen. And the nebula readings, the ones Dr. Chen was investigating. Classified by Concordat order, Zhang replied, along with all similar research from the past 5 years. Santos finally looked up, her weathered face set in stone. How many? Sir, how many research vessels have we lost this year alone? Zhang consulted his tablet. 17, Admiral. All in regions where we were detecting unusual patterns of extinction-level events affecting developing worlds. Santos stood slowly, her hands pressed flat against the table. They're systematically destroying any species that might one day challenge their dominion. And now they're eliminating anyone who might expose their genocide. The room was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent 2 decades playing by the Concordat's rules, accepting their restrictions and prejudices, trying to prove they weren't the violent Deathworlders the galaxy feared. We have confirmation from our deep cover assets, Zhang added. The Concordat leadership has authorized the containment of humanity. They're planning to gradually eliminate our ability to expand or develop independently. The Aurora wasn't a random attack, it was the beginning. Santos straightened to her full height, her voice carrying the weight of decision. Send the signal. Activate protocol. Prometheus. Around the table, the other commanders stiffened. Protocol. Prometheus wasn't a defense plan. It was the codename for humanity's hidden blade, developed in secret over 20 years of apparent submission. The Concordat believes we've been cowed by their power, Santos continued. They think we've forgotten our strength, forgotten what it means to come from a death world. It's time to remind them. She turned to the window, gazing at the gleaming curve of Earth below. Transmit to all commands. Operation Remembrance is now in effect. The Concordat wanted Deathworlders. Now they'll get them. In the darkness of space, humanity's hidden fleets began to move. Silent preparations. Deep within the asteroid mines of Ceres, where the Concordat sensors couldn't penetrate, Chief Engineer Raj Patel watched as another stealth dreadnought took shape. The massive vessel's hull was composed of metamaterials that absorbed scanner waves, making it virtually invisible to standard detection systems. But its true power lay in the weapons it carried. technologies the Concordat thought humanity was decades away from developing. Final system check complete, his assistant reported. The Nemesis is ready for deployment. Raj nodded, making a final note in his secure tablet. The Nemesis was the 20th ship of her class, each one built in absolute secrecy, hidden away in supposedly abandoned mining facilities throughout the solar system. For every civilian vessel humanity built under Concordat observation, 3 more were constructed in the shadows. Message from command. The facility's AI announced. Protocol. Prometheus has been activated. Begin Phase 2 deployment. Raj's hands tightened on the railing. After 20 years of preparation, it was finally happening. Launch sequence initiated. Alert all personnel. Operation Remembrance is go. Throughout the asteroid belt, massive doors began to open, revealing humanity's hidden teeth. In the diplomatic quarter of New Geneva, Ambassador Sarah Lai sat across from Zaxtel, the spindly representative of the Arxer, one of many species the Concordat had deemed primitive. The meeting was officially about trade regulations. Unofficially, your people understand oppression, Lai said quietly. You know what it means to be judged lesser, to be contained and controlled. Zaxtel's compound eyes shifted nervously. The Concordat is too powerful. No single species can stand against them. Lai smiled. Who said anything about standing alone? She activated a small hologram showing the true extent of human military development. The hidden fleets, the advanced weapons, the defensive systems that could neutralize Concordat technology. We've spent 20 years preparing, gathering strength while appearing weak. But we're not the only ones they underestimated. Zaxtel studied the data, his antennae twitching with growing excitement. The Arxer have maintained certain capabilities as well. Capabilities the Concordat doesn't know about. As have the Nyx, Lai added, and the Kitari, and others. Separately, we're vulnerable. Together we could break their grip on the galaxy, Zaxtel finished. But why trust humans? You're Deathworlders. Lai's smile turned predatory. Yes, we are, and we're done pretending to be anything else. In secure facilities across Earth, humanity's elite soldiers underwent their final training exercises. Their powered armor incorporated technologies reverse-engineered from a dozen alien species, enhanced by humanity's unique understanding of combat. They'd moved like ghosts, fought like demons, and struck with the precision of surgeons. Commander James Chen, son of the murdered Dr. Sarah Chen, watched his unit run through their drills. They were practicing boarding actions against simulated Concordat vessels, using tactics no primitive Deathworlders should have been capable of developing. Time to target, he asked his XO. 6 hours until we reach deployment positions, she responded. All teams report ready. The Concordat's orbital defense stations won't know what hit them. Chen nodded, checking his own armor systems. The Concordat had murdered his mother for discovering their crimes. Now they would learn why humans were called Deathworlders. On Luna, Admiral Santos reviewed the final pieces falling into place. Sleeper agents embedded throughout Concordat space were ready to sabotage key facilities. Alien allies waited in position, their own hidden strengths ready to be unveiled. And humanity's secret fleets were moving into strike positions, cloaked by technologies the Concordat didn't believe possible. Status report, she commanded. All Phase 2 preparations are complete, her AI reported. Stealth fleets are in position. Ground forces are ready for deployment. Alien allies confirm their readiness, awaiting your order to begin Phase 3. Santos studied the tactical display, showing the true disposition of forces throughout local space. The Concordat's arrogance had led them to believe humanity was contained, controlled, reduced to a compliant client race. They never imagined that every concession, every submission, every apparent weakness had been carefully calculated. Send the final authorization, she ordered. Operation Remembrance, Phase 3. Show them what Deathworlders can really do. Throughout human space, hidden weapons powered up. Secret fleets decloaked. and humanity prepared to remind the galaxy why Earth was classified as a death world. The Concordat had wanted monsters. Now they would get them. The first strike. The Concordat's primary shipyards over Centauri Prime hung in space like a gleaming spider web, construction drones moving between massive vessels under repair. Defense platforms maintained their usual patrol patterns, their crews confident in their superiority over the primitive species they governed. None of them noticed the slight distortion in space as the stealth dreadnought Nemesis dropped its cloak. All weapons systems online. Weapons Officer Maya Rodriguez reported, her fingers dancing over the tactical display. Target packages uploaded. Waiting for your command. Captain Victor Reyes stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship, watching the unsuspecting Concordat facility. Behind him, 20 more stealth vessels decloaked in perfect formation. Send the signal. Let's remind them what humanity is capable of. The first salvos struck with devastating precision, targeting communication arrays and defense platforms. The Concordat's superior shields, designed to repel known weapons, proved useless against human technology that had been developed in secret. Multiple hostile contacts, a Concordat officer shouted as their sensors finally registered the attack. Impossible. These readings can't be correct. Oh, they're correct, Reyes muttered as his fleet unleashed their full arsenal. We just didn't tell you what we were building. Across the shipyard, boarding torpedoes launched from human vessels, carrying teams of power-armored Marines. Commander Chen led the first wave, his troops moving within human speed and precision through the Concordat's defenses. Remember the Aurora? Chen transmitted to his forces as they breached the main command center. Remember, all are dead. No mercy. The Concordat's security forces found themselves facing opponents they couldn't comprehend. Human soldiers moved like ghosts through their defenses, their armor shrugging off energy weapons, their own weapons cutting through supposedly impenetrable barriers. This is impossible. A Concordat commander shouted over their emergency channels. They're just Deathworlders. They can't have this level of technology. Admiral Santos monitored the battle from her command center on Luna, watching as humanity's hidden strength was finally revealed. Send in the second wave. Begin Phase 3B. Throughout Concordat space, carefully placed agents activated their protocols. Defense systems suddenly failed. Communication networks went dark. And in system after system, the oppressed species that the Concordat had dismissed as primitive revealed their own hidden teeth. The Arxer fleet, led by war leader Zaxtel, struck from hidden bases in the nebula clouds, their ships incorporating human stealth technology. The Nyx emerged from their supposedly primitive underground cities with weapons that turned Concordat energy shields into death traps. And the Qitari, thought to be simple merchants, revealed that their trading vessels contained weapon systems more advanced than anything the Concordat had imagined. Status report, Santos demanded as the coordinated assault unfolded. Centauri shipyards are under our control, her AI reported. Concordat forces are in full retreat from all primary targets. Casualty rates are within projected parameters. The Arxer and Nyx forces report similar successes in their sectors. Santos nodded grimly. And the civilian evacuation? Complete. All human civilians were quietly moved to secure locations before the attack began. The Concordat never noticed. On the Nemesis, Captain Reyes watched as the last Concordat vessel in the system was disabled by precisely targeted weapons fire. The mighty shipyards, pride of the Concordat's military-industrial complex, now floated silent and dark under human control. Send word to all commands, he ordered. Phase 3 is complete. Begin Phase 4. Throughout human space, more hidden fleets emerged from their secret harbors. The weapons and ships that humanity had spent 20 years developing in absolute secrecy were finally revealed. But this was just the beginning. Message from the Concordat High Council, his communications officer reported. They're demanding our immediate surrender. They say this act of aggression proves they were right about Deathworlders. Reyes smiled coldly. Send them our response. 3 words only. You wanted monsters. In the debris field that had once been their greatest shipyard, the Concordat's leaders began to realize their terrible mistake. They had spent decades containing what they saw as a primitive, violent species. They never imagined that every act of submission, every apparent weakness, had been carefully calculated to lull them into complacency. They had feared Deathworlders. Now, they would learn why. Alliance of the Downtrodden. The Concordat High Council's emergency session dissolved into chaos as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Their carefully maintained order was unraveling at a pace they couldn't comprehend. The Nix have taken control of the Orion defense grid, one counselor reported, his crystalline form flickering with distress. The Qatari merchant fleet, they weren't merchants at all. And the Arxer. Silence, High Chancellor Vexthar demanded, but the fear in his multi-tone voice was unmistakable. These are mere primitives. They cannot. A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, showing Admiral Santos standing proud in her Terran Defense Force uniform. Behind her stood representatives from a dozen species the Concordat had dismissed as inferior. Your reign of oppression ends today, Santos declared. For too long you've used fear and prejudice to maintain your power. You called us Deathworlders, primitives, dangers to galactic civilization. You never realized that your persecution would unite us. War leader Zaxtel stepped forward, his Arxer form towering over the other representatives. You thought us simple warriors, incapable of subtlety. While you watched humans for signs of violence, they taught us strategy. You dismissed us as mere traitors, Kittel of the Qatari added, her iridescent scales gleaming. Never questioning why our ships could reach every corner of your empire. On screens across Concordat space, the message played. Species after species revealed how humanity had helped them prepare in secret, sharing technology and tactics while maintaining a facade of submission. Commander Chen led his strike team through the Concordat's supposedly impregnable fortress on Nexus Prime. The facility's defenses had been designed to stop brute force attacks. They were useless against the precision and sophistication of human combat doctrine. Team 2 in position, his XO reported. The Nix sappers have disabled their shield grid. The Qatari infiltrators have the command codes. Chen nodded inside his advanced combat armor. Begin final breach. Remember, we disable, not destroy. The galaxy needs to see we're better than they claimed. The assault was surgical, precise, and overwhelmingly effective. In less than an hour, the Concordat's military headquarters fell without a single fatality on either side. Send word to Admiral Santos, Chen ordered as his troops secured the command center. Nexus Prime is secured. Operation Enlightenment is ready for Phase 2. Aboard the Nemesis, Captain Reyes coordinated with the growing Alliance fleet. Ships of a dozen different species moved in perfect harmony, their technologies complementing each other in ways the Concordat had never imagined possible. The Arxer dreadnoughts are in position, his tactical officer reported. Qatari stealth ships have marked all targets. The Nix ground forces await your signal. Reyes studied the tactical display showing their next target, the Concordat's supposedly secret research facility where they had developed weapons to use against dangerous species. Begin the approach, he ordered. Let's show them what real cooperation looks like. The facility's defenders were prepared for brute force, for the savage attack they expected from primitives. They weren't prepared for the precise coordination of multiple species, each contributing their unique strengths to an unstoppable whole. Arxer heavy weapons suppressed defensive positions. Qatari infiltrators disabled security systems. Nix sappers breached supposedly impregnable walls, and human strike teams moved in to secure vital data and personnel. Another bloodless victory, Reyes noted with satisfaction. How many Concordat worlds have surrendered? 17 in the last hour alone, his XO replied. Their entire power structure is collapsing. They never imagined their subjected species could work together like this. On Luna, Admiral Santos met with the growing Alliance Council. Representatives from 20 former subject species gathered to plan the future of a galaxy without Concordat domination. We need to be better than they were, Santos addressed the assembly. They ruled through fear and prejudice. We must build something new based on mutual respect and cooperation. Zaxtel nodded his massive head. They thought marking us as primitives would keep us divided. Instead, it gave us common cause, and humanity showed us how to turn our differences into strengths. The Alliance fleet continued its advance through Concordat space, but now they were more often greeted by surrender than resistance. World after world saw the truth, that cooperation between species produced greater strength than suppression ever could. The Concordat had feared the violence of Deathworlders. Instead, humanity had proven more dangerous through its ability to unite, adapt, and overcome prejudice. Their greatest weapon hadn't been their hidden fleets or advanced technology. It had been their capacity to turn enemies into allies and weakness into strength. Dawn of a new galaxy. The Concordat capital world of Axion Prime hung in space like a jewel, its orbital rings gleaming in the light of 3 suns. For millennia, it had been the seat of power for those who claimed to protect galactic civilization from primitive species. Now, it faced the combined might of those it had oppressed. Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Prometheus, watching as the Alliance fleet dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. Ships of every subject species moved together with practiced precision. Arxer dreadnoughts, Qatari stealth vessels, Nex carriers, and humanity's advanced warships. Final transmission from the Concordat High Council, her communications officer reported. They're demanding to know our terms. Santos allowed herself a small smile. Show them. The holographic display activated, showing not a list of demands, but scenes from across the galaxy. Former subject species working together to rebuild worlds the Concordat had stripped bare. Joint scientific missions exploring the mysteries the Concordat had forbidden them to investigate. And most importantly, the successful evacuation and protection of developing civilizations the Concordat had marked for elimination. We don't want your surrender, Santos transmitted. We want your understanding. Look at what we've accomplished together in just weeks. Imagine what we could have achieved in centuries if you'd seen us as equals instead of threats. Commander Chen led his mixed species security team through the halls of the Concordat High Council chamber. Humans in advanced combat armor moved alongside Arxer warriors and Qatari infiltrators, each contributing their unique strengths to the mission. The building is secured, he reported. No casualties on either side. The council is waiting in the main chamber. Inside, the Concordat leaders faced the reality they had feared, but not in the way they had imagined. Instead of savage Deathworlders coming to destroy them, they found themselves confronting the combined wisdom and strength of a united galaxy. You were right about one thing. Captain Rice addressed the council as Alliance forces secured the capital. Humanity is dangerous, not because we're violent, but because we know how to turn enemies into allies. Not because we're primitive, but because we never stop learning and adapting. War leader Zaxtel stepped forward, his massive form no longer projecting menace but authority. You thought marking us as lesser species would keep us weak. Instead, it taught us to value each other's strengths. Your empire was built on fear, Kital of the Qatari added. Ours will be built on cooperation. Throughout the galaxy, the message spread. The Concordat hadn't fallen to violence or conquest, but to something far more powerful, the combined potential of species working together as equals. Research facilities once dedicated to developing weapons now house joint scientific missions. Trade routes previously restricted to Concordat vessels buzzed with ships of all species, and the worlds of developing civilizations were now protected by combined fleets, ensuring they would have the chance to join galactic society on their own terms. On Luna, Admiral Santos met with the newly formed Galactic Coalition Council. Representatives of every species, including the former Concordat races, gathered to shape the future. We were called Deathworlders, Santos addressed the assembly. It was meant as an insult. a mark of fear. But what they never understood was that coming from a harsh world didn't make us violent. It taught us the importance of cooperation, of adapting, of becoming stronger by working together. She gestured to the display showing the combined fleet above Axion Prime. Look at what we've achieved, not through conquest or suppression, but through unity, every species contributing its unique perspectives and abilities. This is what they feared, not our capacity for violence, but our capacity to show a better way. The council chamber erupted in agreement. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked side by side, their differences becoming strengths rather than barriers. Dr. Sarah Chen would never know that her death had helped spark this transformation. But as Commander Chen looked out at the new galaxy being born, he knew she would have approved. The Concordat had feared Deathworlders would destroy civilization. Instead, humanity had shown how to build a stronger one, not through force or fear, but through understanding and cooperation. The age of fear was over. The age of unity had begun. The end.